The Hornets fall to the Atlanta Hawks last night after winning a couple of games previously. Miles Bridges still on a hot streak. How do we feel everybody else played in this one? We'll talk about it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's also hosting Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday via Wes and Walker Sports Radio 92.7 FM from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We always appreciate FanDuel. And last but not least, we do have a newsletter, a Locked On Hornets daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Hornets fall to the Hawks. They lose 123 to 110. This was a competitive game. In the third quarter is when things started to get a little wonky for Charlotte. They were still in this one going into the fourth, but Atlanta, too many free throws, too much Trae Young baiting guys into fouls. Too many made threes, honestly, with what the Atlanta was able to do down the stretch, too. 14 of 36 in this one, but really, it was a story of free throws, Doug. 35 of 39. So not only did they get to the foul line, but they hit all of their free throws. And Trey Young put up a free throw performance that reminds me of what Dirk Nowitzki did in the playoffs on his way to a championship when he went some ridiculous 20 of 20, 21, 22 of 22, whatever. Trey Young, a perfect 21 of 21 last night. Unbelievable. Unbelievable from Trey.
It's not unbelievable. It's totally believable. This is what Trey Young does. This is who he is. Now, does he get 21 free throws made every night? No. But he was dealing it out evenly amongst the Hornets. It wasn't one particular guy. Like, he was picking them up against Josh Green. He was picking them up against Wendell Moore. He was picking them up against Daquan Jeffries, who fouled out of this game. He was picking them up against Moussa Diabate. I just think this was a case of Trey Young hunting switches against players that he knew he could get by. Like, I went back and I rewatched every single one of his foul pickups. And yeah, I mean, you could quibble with like the amount of contact, but there was contact on those plays because he was getting by his guy. And so when the Hornets don't have a ton of reliable wing defenders, particularly at the point of attack, that's going to happen. Maybe not to the tune of 21 every night, but when Trey's feeling it, this is what he does. Trey's the kind of guy that I hate, but I also would love him on the team. Like, he helped the Hawks get this win. So it's difficult.
Oh, yeah, no, he definitely helped them. It is a career high in both free throw attempts and free throw makes. He did have 21 free throw attempts his second year in the league, but his career high previously in free throw makes was 18 that same second year. So he had 3 more free throw makes in this one. It was a career high. No salute to you. Like, we can respect it, and also I wish it didn't happen against my team. But it did. Miles Bridges talked about it after the game, saying we got to defend without fouling. And I'll say, Miles, to what you were saying, Doug, he didn't seem to think that these were, I don't know about every call, but Miles took upon the team's responsibility, saying we have to defend without fouling. It's not like Trey was getting all of these ridiculous fouls. And yeah, I didn't see that really on my Twitter timeline either. I didn't see a lot of Hornets fans upset with just how many foul calls he was getting. I think they were upset and how good he was at baiting defenders into fouling him. I think that's what it was. And there's a very important distinction to be made there. Trae Young just was at the peak of his power, and it's a power that's already damn good, but he was at the peak, literally. We have never seen him get to that point until last night against our Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, there have been games where I've seen Trey Young bait the officials. I didn't think that was this game. He was baiting defenders, and
Right.
Charles Lee said the same thing. You got to control what you can control, particularly the ones that happened later on in the third quarter. I thought, again, it was a lot of slapping down after you've gotten beat, and we've seen that a lot from the Hornets this season. When they get beat off the dribble, there's a tendency to try to recover and make up for it. The help defense isn't always there, and so maybe there's just not a trust that the help defender, the low guy, is going to be able to help, and so you try to overdo it a little bit, and you end up fouling. And yeah, it hurt him. But you're right. I mean, the third quarter, competitive first half, and then they open with an 11-0 run, Atlanta does in the third quarter, and that just put the Hornets back on their heels in a way that, you know, they were able to get the lead down to, I think, 4 in the fourth quarter. But we've seen this game like over and over where they allow this big run in the third quarter and they make kind of a fake comeback in the fourth. But all the momentum is with the opposing team. But in that 11-0 run, you had Josh Green missing wide open looks and then getting beat into transition, which seemed to upset Charles Lee, who was giving him a talking to when he checked him out of the game. I thought LaMelo Ball's shot selection in the third quarter, maybe in the second half, questionable. Mark Williams in that 11-0 run got pushed out of bounds by Dyson Daniels in a way that was like, come on, man, just stop. Just like, don't get pushed out of bounds by Dyson Daniels. Come on.
Well, LaMelo got checked out too.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Josh Green got checked out. LaMelo Ball got checked out of the game as well. And Charles Lee wasn't very happy with LaMelo Ball's shot selection, which
called the boys inside. So get inside, boys.
So
no more playing outside with your friends.
You know,
You're in trouble. You're grounded.
We had the conversation about LaMelo checking out. You said he had the suitcases on the other queen bed. I said that he did in that one. I thought I was going to come into this episode saying, just because you check out doesn't mean you can't go back to the same hotel, baby. You can check right on back in. I thought LaMelo did that in the first half. We had some going to the floor for loose balls. We had the chase down block from LaMelo. We had clearly the chase down block, by the way, was awesome. Great stuff from him.
It's great.
And we had, I think, real defensive effort. I think now we're seeing it in the form of taking the 40-footers when it wasn't like there was a lot of defensive on this particular possession. And Dyson Daniels is one of the best defenders in the league. And he showed it last night on a bunch of different plays, whoever you wanted it on. And plus, just team defense, that steal on the Miles Bridges pass was excellent last night. Just both hands on the ball where Eric Collins and Del Curry were saying good defenders usually just deflect the pass. Great ones intercepted, and that's what he did. So Dyson Daniels was fantastic defensively. But there wasn't, on this particular possession in the second half, a lot of ball pressure with LaMelo, again, 40, 35 feet out, and yet he decides to just chuck it, from what I remember, decently early in the shot clock. I guess I'd have to go back and check it, but that's one where I'd like for him to attack. And LaMelo just, you know, he throws it up there. But that was after the shot's not falling for him. It's just continuing not to fall. He also got to the foul line early, had 6 free throw attempts very, very early in this game. He was 10 of 10. It just not as efficient as Trey Young, but we'll take 10 of 10 any night you want to give us that kind of production from the charity stripe. And I thought that he was forcing the issue a little bit. I thought second half, Doug, I think that's when we started to see him not force the issue as much, which I have to imagine was a decent part in why he got benched very early into the third quarter when the Atlanta Hawks went on that run.
Yeah, 4 of 13 from the field in the second half. That's 31%. 2 of 7 from beyond the arc, 28.6. Yeah, the shot selection extremely questionable. I pulled this stat too before we came on the air. He hasn't shot over 50% since January 15th. January 15th. Mm-hmm. He has not shot 40+% in 2 consecutive games since the day after Christmas, since December 26th. Like, he cannot string good shooting games together. Now he did have like 3 or 4 in a row a couple of times early in the season, but whatever that is, it is completely gotten away from him. And that's difficult. It's better when you get to the line. I kind of joked in the chat that this was a Kobe Bryant type of game where you get your 25, you're going to get to the line a few more times, and your shooting percentage is going to be awful. But he had 9 assists as well, and some of these assists were amazing. I think he's getting his groove back in terms of his playmaking and his ability to control the game when he's looking for others. he's lost the ability to control the game in terms of looking for his own offense. And I don't, is it a case of him looking for the same exact shots and them just not going in? Or is it a case of him looking for, and making decisions on shots that maybe he wouldn't have made early in the season? It's tough. It's tough to watch this because, again, he's your highest paid player. You want him to shoot well. If he shoots well. And if Josh Green gives you anything offensively, we can talk about him in the next segment. I mean, you probably win 3 or 4 more games around the margins. I don't know if that helps you in terms of your lottery chances or building your team, but it would be nice to see the guys that are making a lot of money on your team play a little bit more efficiently.
You mentioned LaMelo not shooting 40% from the field consecutively in a really long time. Doug,
40 plus, because he did in February. He shot like 40% and then 44% or something, but he hasn't shot over 40% since December.
But even with those games that you're mentioning, that was the game he got hurt against Brooklyn. It was 10 minutes in one of those games. Yeah. It was 9 minutes against the Lakers on January 27th. So those games don't even count. What I was going to say was he has not shot 40, not above. He has not shot 40% from the field since that month. Lakers game post All-Star break. And the highest he's put up is a 39.3% game against Minnesota when they got beat by 15. He's not hitting shots. And I don't know if he's played enough to have this long of a cold streak before, but it feels like the coldest he's ever been. I don't have the numbers for you specifically on what he's done in previous years, but I can tell you how it feels. And it feels like the coldest LaMelo Ball has ever been during his time in the NBA.
I know we're going to talk about Josh Green, so I just want to mention Miles Bridges not only hot for the Hornets right now, he's one of the hottest players in terms of just his game score differential. Last 5 games, it's been like plus 10.5 versus the rest of his regular season. He's having a tremendous impact on these games. 31 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Can you imagine how badly the Hornets would be getting beaten if Miles Bridges wasn't playing at a superstar level? He's not playing at a star level. He's playing at a superstar level. It's insane.
Oh, well, and
I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means, by the way, because it's March and the Hornets don't have a competitive team, but that's just what it is. That's what he's doing.
They're getting better play from other pieces as well. Let's dive into that. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Bees everywhere! Despite that tease, you can see the second bullet point being Josh Green wolf. That's not a good wolf. I've never seen one that's good. I like dogs. The barking is a little annoying, but wolves, they're usually bad. We'll talk about why the wolf is there with Josh Green and then get into some other performances coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness, it's here, baby. It's the best time of year. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You could pick your favorite teams. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year. I'm always the guy that tries to force the issue because I don't want to go so chalk. And eventually my bracket looks like hell, but I do try to force the issue. And if I do hit on some of these underdogs, FanDuel is the place I'm going to hit big on. Plus, it's easy and fast to fill out what you want to do during March Madness. The FanDuel app, it's simple to use. When I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? How'd you know? How'd you know, Monarch? That's exactly how I feel. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. With all your accounts and investments and spending in one place, you can go beyond just managing money and start building wealth. A command center has me imagine Admiral Akbar in charge of my funds. It's a trap. Don't spend the money. That's what I think of when I think of Command Center. You might be surprised at how much you're spending on things like food delivery or streaming subscriptions. With Monarch, you'll see exactly where your money is going, so you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch makes it easy to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals, all in one place. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's never been smoother. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals together, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Josh Green, not a good game from him last night. What were your thoughts after going back over the film, Doug?
Yeah, I thought he was a big part of the third quarter collapse. He had open shots. He didn't make them. He didn't get back into transition on one of those Young buckets. But, I mean, more than that, like, we could zoom in on his performance in this game. I don't know if you want to. I mean, 2 points. There's not much to zoom in on. 3 rebounds, -6 in 30 minutes. And I've been someone, particularly early in the season, to give Josh Green a break because he is somebody that the Hornets have depended on to take up so much defensive responsibility. And you could argue that in doing so, he has allowed Miles Bridges to not have to take on all of that responsibility like he did last season, and allowed Miles Bridges to expand his offensive game a little bit more. But the results, particularly lately, have been so minuscule, so putrid, the shot making almost non-existent, that it is difficult, if not impossible, to defend. I mentioned that Miles Bridges is one of the hottest players in the NBA if you look at game score differential, how much he's impacting a game now in the last 5 games, last 10 games, versus what he's done all regular season. Well, if you flip that and look at guys that are performing well below, Josh Green is one of the coldest players, particularly over the last 5 games. He's only averaging 2 points per game. And he's averaging a little over 7 on the season. So it's not great offensively if you just look at the season, and that he's managed not even to clear that low bar. He can't even get into the low bar. I just carded Josh Green. Sorry, sir. Your points are too low. You can't even get into the low bar. You didn't clear it. I mean, it's amazing. It's crazy. And again, if the Hornets got even somewhat below marginal production from Josh Green, they probably win a few more of these ball games that they've been competitive in lately. But he has just been a no-show offensively, and this is something, Walker, that we worried about when he was brought onto the team, because we looked at his numbers internationally while he was playing for Team Australia and said, "Wait a minute, he didn't score any points." I mean, it's international ball's different, but to not score any points, that's a little, it'll probably be fine. It wasn't fine.
And then the next game, it's one thing for one game, and then it's another to do it consecutively. I think Josh Green went scoreless in Olympic competition.
No, that's it. That's exactly, that was the talking point. And we were like, that's, look at what he did with Dallas. He's been in the playoffs. It'll be fine. It hasn't been fine offensively.
Well, also remember with Josh, I think he also started getting benched in Olympic competition. So the first couple of games, he wasn't scoring. And then he was held scoreless, didn't even run into a bucket because he also wasn't playing as many minutes. And that's where I think I started to feel like maybe there was something more to him not scoring after he just wasn't getting any minutes anymore. And we've talked about it before. I think Josh Green, there is a role for him somewhere on a team contending, especially with the defense. There was a stretch this year, Doug, where he was actually red hot from 3. If you go back, this is the second time we've mentioned this game when you were going over some game log stuff with LaMelo, but you go back to Washington on December 26th, he shot 50% from 3. He was 1 of 2. I don't want to say this is on any kind of volume, but he was hitting his shots all the way through January. In fact, he shot 42% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. Remember, this was somebody that you kick it out to him, you could feel good about what Josh Green was going to do from three-point land. It's been a long time. February, not kind to him. Beginning of March, not kind to him. And that 3 ball has gone away. So now if you're not going to hit open 3 shots, then we're just not getting a whole lot of production from you in transition. And I will say this, it might be impossible to defend, nor do I really want to defend Josh Green offensively. I will say he's probably one of the guys affected most by not having a legit ball handler out there. Miles Bridges can go get his own shot, but Josh Green's offense is going to come only from transition, running with a smart decision maker, camping in the corner, out somewhere, getting open for three. And if you don't hit a three on one of your 2 or 3 attempts, then odds are you're going to put up a goose egg. So you are totally dependent on someone feeding you the ball in advantageous situations. And if LaMelo's not out there, then sorry, that's just how everybody else, that's what everybody else has to deal with too. So that would be the only thing I'd point out with Josh. And he's not the only one, by the way. I mean, everybody, the whole offense is affected when LaMelo isn't out there as a facilitator.
Yeah, look, I think there are levels to role-playing wings. There's the level of guy who, well, there's the level of player that you literally don't expect any offense from because there's just no offensive talent there. And he's just a guy you play 10, 11 minutes because it's either he's great at offense and terrible at defense or vice versa, like Banton in Portland is like great at offense. And then there are guys that are great at defense. So there's that kind of role player. I don't think that's the expectation for Josh Green. There's also the kind of role player that comes in and it's like, you're not going to get a lot of shots, but when you get those opportunities and you're open because the offense is running through LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, they have gravity, they're bringing guys with them when they drive to the rim. When they kick out to you, you're dependable. You're going to knock down a few shots. You're never really going to like pop off for 25 or 30 on a night. We're not going to expect that from you, but you're going to consistently be around, 10, 12, 15 points. That's where we like you. And then there are players, and Boston has a lot of them, a lot of the elite teams have them. There are guys they're going to do that most nights, but then some nights, yeah, they can go off for 30. I mean, if you're Boston, you got guys that can go off for 40 off the bench. But Josh Green, I think our expectations were in that second category, and he just hasn't been able to get nearly into that level, except for when the Hornets specifically designed plays for him early in a game. When he was on his first, and I'd have to go back and look exactly when the time was, but when he was on his first crazy cold streak, when the Hornets were still in that mode where the injuries hadn't completely eaten the team alive, there were some ideas of competition, he went on a huge cold streak, and they made a concerted effort over 2 or 3 games to get him involved in the offense early. And that's when you did see him score, 10 plus and get to 15 and start hitting some shots. But that's like, you can't do that. You got to have role players who don't need the engine primed. I mean, that's why we worship these guys that are impact players on playoff teams that don't have the offense run through them. They can go 2 quarters without having a shot come their way. And then when they have the opportunity to be open in the third quarter, bango, they hit it. I mean, that's what we want out of those role players. And Josh Green really hasn't been able to do it in any of the quarters.
At least here recently. What I will say is, do you know what he shot in November? Do you know the percentage? He shot 48%.
That's great. How many attempts?
Well, no, it's not many. You took offense to that. I'm saying this out of comedy. Like you took offense to me bringing that up. You want to challenge me? No, I'm saying this.
I'm not taking offense to you. I'm just offended by him averaging 2 points per game over the last 5 games.
It's not been good. It's hilarious to see that he shot 48% from 3. He's shooting 38% on the year. I think a lot to your point is there are a lot of these cold stretches from him where it's been back and forth. If you just want to divide it monthly, right? November, phenomenal percentage on 3 attempts per game, not many. And then January down, December down, January up, February down, now the beginning of March down. So you give me 2 bad months in a row, then that's where it gets sucky. That's where it gets woofy, as we have in the bullet point. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
I want to talk about more individual performances in this one and Hornets foul play. Maybe we can go back to the foul line. We got 21 attempts from Trey Young to discuss. We'll give you our finishing thoughts on the last segment of Locked On Hornets. This is a message brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Okay, lots of negative, lots of fouling, lots of cold streaks from LaMelo, lots of cold streaks from Josh Green. There are some positives, I think, in this game. I think we can just start, again, with what Miles Bridges is doing. I'm at the point now where, and I hate it because it just feels like LaMelo's not hitting any of these shots. I'm at the point now where everything Miles throws up, I think it's going to go in. There are some really physical baskets from Miles down low where Del Curry, Eric Collins mentioned it on the broadcast. It's always been a thing for Miles to have his right hand just cook, even though he's a left-handed shooter, even though he's a left-handed player. But it was particularly on display in this game. Dell was trying to think about a guy that had that kind of ability, where you were truly ambidextrous or amphibious, as someone might say, coming out of NC State, where you're truly amphibious. Miles Bridges is that. And he was trying to think of someone that he played with that had that kind of ability, where you were damn near equally as good with your right or left, and he couldn't think of anybody. It has been impressive. That was, I will say, even when Miles would struggle in some of the years that he's played basketball, that was always true of him. Again, I thought that was a cool nugget that you saw last night. Physical baskets, 5 of 8 from the three-point line, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks from Miles. And his block percentage this year, Doug, it's up. And that is more reminiscent of what we would see from him, I believe, his second year in the league, where he would come by team defense. Even if team defense wasn't necessarily good, I think it was back when he was just a sophomore in the NBA. It felt like he would erase all of the mistakes with an awesome help side block off the backboard, and the block percentage was up there. Now you're not seeing the team defense mistakes, and you're getting some of the help side blocks. Defensively, he's been so much better. What can you say? You said he's playing like a superstar. Doug, there are only 2 players in the NBA, I believe, scoring more in the month of March than Miles Bridges, and one is going to win MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's averaging 37. That's one of the 2 guys that is scoring more than Miles in the month of March. He's been incredible.
And if he keeps it up, and there's no reason to think that he won't, he's going to be probably going to win Player of the Month for March. But again, what does that mean? What does March basketball mean? March is when the NBA does get a little funny, when contending teams like Cleveland, they start to rest guys. You'll see Donovan Mitchell play one night, not play another night. Darius Garland, same thing. Teams are contending teams that have pulled out way ahead. They're getting ready. You've got some good duels between like the Pacers and the Bucks and some of the Western Conference teams that are vying for playoff positioning. But when those teams then go to face the Charlotte Hornets, it's a different story. Now, this one an exception because I think Atlanta and Charlotte, they're always going to play hard against each other, and they're in sort of similar situations where their season is a little bit lost. And Miles Bridges still performs in that game. But so I think it's still going to be a difficult decision for Jeff Peterson down the line of what do you do with Miles Bridges in the offseason. He's making that decision more difficult with this level of play. You mentioned the block shots. It saved the game. It caused a win, the winning streak. Brooklyn Nets, I mean, that block against Cam Thomas was a game saver, a game winner as far as we know, because Cam Thomas, he hits a lot of shots. But Miles Bridges on the left-hand, right-hand thing, sometimes I think, particularly right now when he's in such a groove, I think he wants to get both hands going. You know what I'm saying? Like he's trying to balance the hands. He doesn't want one to get cold. He's like taking care of both of them. Like, hey, righty, I haven't gone up with you in a while, so I'm going to go right. Left, it's been a couple of quarters. Let me go up with the left. It's crazy, man. He's so in control of his game right now. I will say, and this is not hating on him at all, in the third quarter when they let that 11-0 run go, it was capped off, that run, by him doing this step back three that I had erased from my memory because it was always the signal of like, oh boy, here we go. The Hornets are playing terribly. Now we're going to the Miles Bridges step back three. This never works. It didn't work against Atlanta. He has changed that into what we saw in some of the past couple of games, the relocation three, where he'll fake step right and then draw up a good 3-point shot. But this step back three, I saw it at the end of that 11-0 run, and I go, Hornets lost. They're losing. There's this like, that's the bat signal for everything's gone wrong. Miles is trying whatever he can. But that step back three, Miles, just please, I beg you, just erase that from your game entirely. It never works. Please erase it.
A couple of other things to note. One thing in particular, I tweeted this out yesterday, Doug. Congratulations to Marcus Garrett, who gets his NBA debut after being called up from the G League and also officially becoming a winner in everyone's favorite Locked On Hornets game. Who wore it best? There's never been a player to wear number 28 in the history of the Hornets franchise.
Whoa,
Marcus
congratulations.
Garrett, you are now going to be someone forever remembered in Locked On Hornets lore. Maybe not so much
Nice.
Hornets lore. I could try to stretch it. But Locked On Hornets lore, when we play this game over the course of 3 off seasons, one of those off seasons, we're going to mention your name. We're going to do it.
It's coming up. I mean, we're going to have to review, and we're going to come upon Marcus Garrett in the number 28, winning by default. Yeah, he was fine. I mean, 2 of 6 in the field.
Couple
on a
good
10-day
takes. I thought he had a couple of like, hey, I can take you off of the dribble and get to the cup, and got the stamp of approval from Eric Collins on one of those possessions. Made his first field goal attempt ever in the NBA, which is pretty cool. He's 1 of 1 to start this one. So nice job.
He's in a group of guys with Damian Ball. So they brought Malachi Flynn in on the 10-day. He's gone now. But I think, Marcus Garrett being from the Swarm and playing well there, I think he's in this bucket of players. Throw Damian Ball in there, Wendell Moore Jr., you throw a couple of these guys, you're going to see some of, if not most of these names pop up again in the offseason when they go to training camp. And these guys will be fighting for roster spots. You might see a few of them in Summer League. They're hanging around. And the reason they're hanging around is because the culture, the DNA that is being set up by Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee, these guys define it. If you see them in a Hornets uniform, it's because they've earned it in Greensboro or somewhere else. And it's not just because they exist, which I think is somewhat the previous requirement, is that they're just be a warm-blooded body. So, it's fun to watch these guys run around. I don't know what the future of Marcus Garrett or Wendell Moore Jr. or Damian Ball is going to be, but, I think we'll see a couple of these names in the future.
5 assists from Marcus Garrett in this game. Final take, and I saved this take for dead last, so you couldn't squeeze me out with any hate, because I'm about to spread love on your favorite player in Mark Williams. I'm about to give some love to Mark for this game.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, let me just say real quick before you spread the love. I thought it was a good game, too. I just thought in the third quarter in particular, I was just pointing out, all of the things that went wrong. Mark was part of that, but generally I thought this was a fine game.
Oh, and again, the comedy of it all, given our Mark conversations lately. And then we took a break because Mark didn't give me anything to defend. I was like, yes, Doug, you are totally right on Mark for this stretch of games. It's the most active I've seen him in a long time, and that's 2 games in a row. I thought Mark was fighting. I thought Mark was running the floor. And here's something, going to cleaning the glass for this game recap, it matched the eye test. I thought Mark's impact defending the rim was also as impactful as I have seen in quite some time. So I go to cleaning the glass, and I'm looking at the rim frequency for Atlanta, and I'm looking at the rim accuracy for Atlanta. Atlanta finished in the 12th percentile in all of the regular season games played so far. And there's a lot. There's a big sample size. 12th percentile. Mark was deterring dudes from driving to the rim. I think you could see that. The accuracy, Doug, it's one of the worst rim shooting games any team has experienced in the NBA so far. Atlanta finished in the first percentile in rim accuracy. And I thought Mark had a ton to do with it. Like, it matched with throwing his hands up there, battling when guards were driving. Okongwu was not good, and he's a smaller center, so it doesn't mean that there's any permanent problems fixed with this performance. Well, and nobody's going to deny that. do I want Mark Williams to be as effective as possible against this type of team? The answer to that was yes. And I thought, again, when you defend the rim that well, and he had 10 rebounds before he even went out in the third. He had 10 rebounds, I think, by the 10-minute mark in the third quarter. The thing is, even against these smaller teams, even against the teams that don't have a crazy starting center, Doug, he wasn't playing well against those squads. That was the issue. The activity level looked terrible. He wasn't running the floor. He had bad plays in this one. The take foul, frustration because Dyson Daniels comes over and is immediately him catching the basketball. Dyson just rips it, and he got angry and committed a take foul. So you're just, okay, great. Let's just you're just handing Atlanta a free throw, and Mark had to go to the bench because of that. It was a frustration play you shouldn't make. There were bad plays. This was a really good game, and he's showing really good activity. I'm glad I'm just seeing that. I'm glad I'm seeing that from Mark. Anything else of note, or should we end it there?
Me too. I'm glad other teams are seeing it as well.
That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also, Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, on Wes and Walker every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.